Have you ever wondered if your physical pain might have an emotional or spiritual root? Well, in today's episode, I'm sitting down with psychic medium and medical intuitive Julie Ryan. Julie's journey from successful businesswoman to full time intuitive healer is wildly fascinating. And what she shares with us might just shift the way you think about healing forever. We're diving into everything from energy healing, past life regressions, spirit guides, angels, fairies, and even aliens. Because, they're making the news these days. Julie also breaks down how we all have the ability to connect with the spirit world and how that connection can actually support our emotional and physical well-being. So if you're curious about intuitive healing, open to the mystical, or just ready to hear some crazy stories, this one's for you. If you're new here, you're listening to the How We Get Through podcast, a space for real, unfiltered conversations with healers, helpers, and humans who've been through it. I'm your host, Jen, a licensed therapist and your guide into how we get woo. A space where you don't just listen to healers, you experience their work. Inside the community, you'll find rituals, journal prompts, meditations, and soul-expanding live events that leave you feeling more intuitive and whole. If you're feeling the pull, we'd love to have you inside. The link's in the show notes. Welcome or welcome back to How We Get Through. Welcome back to How We Get Through. Today we have Julie Ryan, who is a psychic medium and a medical intuitive. Welcome, Julie.
Thanks so much for having me. What a delight to be with you.
Oh, excuse me, you are the best. Before we hopped on, I was like tearing and crying. Like, you just have a beautiful presence, like a very nurturing, mothering, strong presence. So thank you so much for
No,
meeting with us today.
you bet. My honor.
Aw. Okay, Julie. So can you please talk about first how the hell you got here? When did your gift start coming online? Like, did you know as a child or did it happen at certain traumatic events? Like, how did it happen for you?
I paid for it.
Oh, can you do that?
Yeah, I learned how to do this stuff, Jen, in my mid-30s. And, so, no, I did not have dead people chasing me when I was a kid, or if I did, let alone I would have done with that. But I learned how to do this stuff. I'm an inventor of surgical devices sold throughout the world and former manufacturer of them, and I'm a serial entrepreneur who's founded 9 companies in 5 industries. So,
Wow.
I'm a businesswoman who learned how to do woo-woo, and I'm a buffet of psychicness.
Okay, that is a beautiful combination, and I want to be that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I teach people all over the world how to do this. Everybody has the ability. There's nothing special about it. You just learn to develop and enhance it.
hmm How has your woo helped you in your business? What does that look like when you talk about like marrying both of those?
Well, now I sold my surgical device manufacturing company about 10 years ago, and I thought, okay, now what? What am I going to do? And so that's how I got into this full time, into the woo woo full time. And I don't know if you know this, I just learned this in the past less than a year that woo in Taoism means source. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, I used to catch so much grief from people and they'd say, "Well, you shouldn't call this woo woo because you're making it into something that's disrespectful." I'm like, "No, it's not. You need to lighten up. It's really fun." So I always say woo woo and my dear friend Son Chang, who's a Taoist priest, he goes, "Well, woo means source in Taoism." And I said, "I didn't know that, but it's good to know."
Yes, well, it's so interesting because I just launched a spiritual community called How We Get Woo.
There you go. How we
And
get
I
to
thought the same
source.
thing. I was like, "Oh, but woo's kind of like, a lot of people were kind of attacking it." But I was like, "Oh, but it's so good because we have how we get through and how we get woo."
Exactly. Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, so you started connecting in your
I learned how
mid-30s.
to do this stuff. I was given a book called Anatomy of the Spirit for probably my 35th birthday, something
From
like
who?
that, from a girlfriend
Okay.
who was way more spiritual than I. I mean, I was raised Catholic, 12 years Catholic schools, all of that. Still practicing Catholic, but I'm a cafeteria Catholic. So I take what I like and I leave what I don't like, kind of a thing. And I read Anatomy of the Spirit by Carolyn Mace, and she called herself a medical intuitive. And I thought, well, what the heck is that? I'd never heard of that before. And I was in the medical business on the supply side. And so I'm interested in helping people heal through conventional medical means. And then I went to the library. I didn't go to the library, I went to a bookstore because the library, I thought, it's not going to have a lot of
What
this
you're
stuff.
looking for.
Exactly. So I went to the spiritual section in the bookstore because we didn't have the internet yet. And I found this book called Hands of Light by Barbara Brennan, who was a former NASA physicist who parlayed very complex quantum physics information into understandable English for the non-scientific mind. That would be me. And I wanted to know more because she was using quantum physics principles to do energy healing. And I wanted to know more. So I called her school and I said, "You guys got anybody teaching this stuff in my area?" And they said, "Yeah, we do. As a matter of fact, we have a graduate that just opened a school." I said, "Cool." So I studied with her for 8 years and she's now in her mid 80s and she's still my mentor. I talk to her once a month.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So I paid the equivalent of what somebody would pay to get an MD or a PhD, and that was 30 years ago, and people at the time, Jen, said to me, "Well, why are you doing this?" Because I was a mom and a businesswoman and a wife and all of that, and I said, "I don't know why I'm doing it," and they said, "Well, what are you gonna do with it?" I said, "Again, I have no idea, I'm just being led to do it." So I studied with her for 6 years, and then fast forward, not like you're a full-time student. I mean, I go once a week to classes for several months
Still.
out of the year, but it was a big commitment both financially and time-wise. And then fast forward 30 years, and I teach it in a weekend, how to do all of this in a weekend and way more than what I learned. I learned the medical stuff and communicating with spirit, but now in the buffet of psychicness that I teach, that I am, once you connect with spirit, you can do it all. So we do
Yeah.
past life stuff, we do pet stuff, we do how close to death somebody is, communicating with spirit, spirit guides, angels, medical stuff, energy healing. It's all the same thing once you connect with spirit.
So, can you describe that? Because I can't wait to get there. I'm very excited. When you think about, like, connecting to spirit and you can access all these different things, what is your experience of that internally?
It happens in a nanosecond. I turn it on and off like a light switch. I don't walk around scanning people because that would
Yeah.
be obnoxious. Can you
For you.
imagine
Yeah.
being in a crowd of people going, "Okay, that one's got strep throat, that one's got whatever, that one's got whatever." So, and plus, I think it's an invasion of their privacy, and I'm not going to do it from an ethical standpoint. So I just attention intention. Our heads are like big satellite dishes and they receive and transmit frequencies. Every spirit has a frequency they keep throughout all of their lifetimes. Whether it's attached to a body or not is irrelevant. So I think of the person, and whether I knew him or not is irrelevant. If you want to talk to Elvis, you think of Elvis. And that tunes your satellite dish head to Elvis's spirit's frequency. And it opens up kind of like a two-way radio communication. And then you say something either aloud or in your head, and then his spirit's going to answer you. And how you know that's coming from the spirit with whom you want to communicate is just that first thing, Jen, fast as you can snap your fingers, first thing that comes in your head. And then you just have a conversation. It's super easy and we're all doing it. We're just not aware of it.
Mhm. Yeah. Yes, that's what I've noticed. The more that I tune in, the faster it comes. I mean, it comes in very quick, but it's like, are you listening?
Well, not only that, but if we wait longer than a second or two, then our brain comes in and we're doubting ourselves. And so when we doubt ourselves or we overanalyze the crap out of something, which we all do, especially women, I mean, we're really good at that. What we do is we go into fear. Fear is a low vibration. spirit doesn't communicate on the I feel crappy channels because the vibration's too low. So you got to get back in alignment, reconnect, and then ask something. It's really fun.
Yeah. Is there ever a time where you think you're connecting, say, for example, Elvis, and it's actually a different spirit or a different frequency?
I've never experienced that in 30 years. No. Yeah. It's attention, intention. Who do you want to connect to? You think of them. Your intention is you want to connect with Elvis. So you connect with Elvis. It's really that simple. And then when I'm working with somebody on a medical intuition and energy healing basis, I imagine the person, whether I'm talking to them, like if they call into my show, I have a call in show every Thursday night, Ask Julie Ryan. And at 8 Eastern, 7 Central, and 5 Pacific.
Get it.
And so somebody can call in or somebody can be in the YouTube live stream in the chat. So Susie's live streaming me from Albuquerque. I think of Susie. My laser beam connects to Susie in an instant. And let's say she's got a pain in her shoulder. And then I'll connect into her. And it's like I'm a human MRI. So I can see inside her body. And I can see broken bones, torn ligaments, viral infections, bacterial infections, cancer, stuff like that. I had
Wow.
a client this morning that has breast cancer. And she just told me she had breast cancer. So I connected into her and I said, okay, left breast, left sides. It's about the size of a tennis ball. She said, yep. I said, it's spread to one of your lymph nodes. Yep. I said, it hasn't metastasized anyplace else. She said, you're right. She's a medical provider. So she knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And then I'll watch a healing occur. And it's spirit working through me and with me to help facilitate that person healing themselves. Because nobody heals anybody else ever. You think about one of your little kids gets a boo-boo on their finger. What do? You put a Band-Aid on and you kiss it. But your child's making its own skin grow back. You're just helping your child while their skin grows back.
Yeah.
Right? You go to the emergency room, you got a big cut. They're going to stitch it up, but the doctor's not going to make your skin grow back. You make your own skin grow back. So the work that I do with spirit working through me and with me, or one of my graduates, got hundreds of them around the globe. I think we've had students from 14 countries so far.
Wow.
And it's spirit working through us and with us to help that person heal themselves. It's part of the healing equation with Eastern medicine, Western medicine, energy medicine, whatever else the person is led to bring into the healing equation.
Does the person have to believe in it to speed the process up? Or like, can anybody come and, do you know what I mean? Like, because I feel like you have to be open enough to even believe that you can heal yourself.
That's a great question. And what I find is that if somebody's calling into my show or they're paying money to spend an hour with me,
They believe.
they're interested enough that they want to do that. Where it gets interesting, though, is when somebody wants me to scan and or do a healing on a loved one. This woman with breast cancer
Oh.
this morning wanted me to tune into her daughter. And so I always ask permission of the person if I'm not working with them directly. So I watch a laser beam go from the mom, connected to the mom, to the daughter. Even if the daughter is a fetus, I'll ask that spirit
Hmm.
for permission because I believe it's an invasion of their privacy. If I'm scanning their body, it's like looking at an x-ray without somebody's permission. And yet the spirit will talk to us and tell us what it wants us to know. But I'm not invading their privacy because they're
Right.
telling us what they want us to know. So when I'm doing a healing, I will describe what I'm seeing in my mind's eye. I get what I call divine downloads, Jen.
Mm-hmm.
So spirit's
Yes.
talking to me in my head going, look over here, check this out, do whatever. When we're chatting, even before I get them on my radar, like on my MRI screen. And then when I watch the healing happening, I describe it in detail, and spirit's hilarious. So I may tell you, your elbow looks like whipped cream, or something
Uh,
crazy like that. But that's just how the images come to me so we can have a human frame of reference for this quantum physics stuff going on. And at the beginning, it was embarrassing for me to, I thought, oh my God, people are just going to think I'm nuts, even more so than they already do. When I tell them their elbow looks like whipped cream or their brain looks like thick cooked oatmeal and has the consistency of soft butter. And yet, it helps us from a human perspective integrate the healing into our physical bodies because we have a human frame of reference for it. And since that time, through all these years, I think we did episode 611 last night.
wow.
So, through all these years, I've lost count of how many people say, "No, I love your crazy analogies because you describe body parts better than any doctor I've ever been to." I said, "Okay,
Yes.
good." It's really fun when I get to work with doctors and other medical
Oh,
providers.
I bet.
Yeah.
I bet their mind's blown. Yeah. But I like that idea of imagery because when you talk about spirituality or you talk about something in the body, having that image is that beautiful attachment to a little bit of like the 3D world, or like I can picture it or I can see it like healing, or I can see it like fixing itself. And so I think that's super powerful.
Well, you think about all the things that we just accept in our world today, like, one of your kids gets cut and they've got a Band-Aid on their boo-boo. Well, you're not watching every cell attached to the next cell, to the next cell, to the next cell to grow new skin, and yet we know it works. Furthermore, when we're microwaving something or we're talking on our cell phones or something along those lines, we can't see the energy that's hooking into the cell tower that's going to connect the two of us. We can't see the internet energy, but we know it works because I'm talking with you. The other thing about frame of reference and picturing things, the body's going to follow what the brain tells it, even if the brain doesn't believe it to be true. For example, you're watching a movie and it has a sad part, and you find yourself getting a little teary or perhaps even weepy watching it, and your brain knows it's pretend, knows it's total fiction, and yet your body's reacting to what your brain's showing it, and even though it's not true. So, yeah, the imagery helps a lot. And then oftentimes people will say, "Oh my god, my shoulder's feeling hot," and they're on the other side of the world from me, because I never do it in person unless it's a family member or a friend. It's always remote, which I think speaks a lot to the power of energy too. You don't need to be with somebody.
Right. Exactly. So I'm wait, I have to go back to the daughter. Did her spirit say yes or no?
She said yes. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
oh, that's good.
The
Yeah.
littler they are, the more they say no. It's hilarious.
Really?
Oh, it's hysterical. Like a
How
3-year-old say,
funny.
"No,"
Yeah.
or I had a 3-year-old this morning, I was getting my nails done, and my gal who's done my nails for 25 years, her daughter had some stuff going on, and so I connected into the mom. I was with her, but the daughter wasn't with us, obviously, and so I connected to the mom and then connected to the little girl, and I said, "I'm with your mommy, and she wants me to look at your body part," it was the brain in this situation, and, she said, "Why? Why do you wanna do that?" And so, I'm having this conversation telepathically in my head, and I'm talking out loud so the mom can hear it, and the mom's just laughing because this kid's
It's
just
right on.
like,
Yeah.
you know, 50 kabillion questions a day
Yeah.
at that age.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And
Oh.
so she said, "Yeah, okay."
Oh.
That's cute.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So in the cancer realm,
Mhm.
how does it look like in the healing part? Do they still do medical treatment and the energetic healing? What's the protocol that
If
you
they're
recommend?
led to do that, I always say work with your doctors, pay attention to your intuition. The healing has happened on the energetic level. So now it just has to integrate into your body. That can happen instantly. It can take days, weeks, months, may need complementary care like change in diet, physical therapy, surgery, chemo, whatever. And we're all led to do what our spirit is advising us to do. So this client this morning is getting a port put in on Monday in her chest for chemo, and they want her to do chemo, and then they want to do surgery to remove the tumor. And so we cleared that out, did a DNA healing, cleared her lymph nodes out, did a lymph fluid cleanse, did a heavy metal detox, did
Wow.
some other healings. And so when I see a cancer patient, Jen, it's really interesting because if the cancer is metastasized, you know how a dairy cow's white and it has black splotches on it? That's what metastasized cancer looks like to me. That's the image that spirit gives me. And so those cows looks like somebody took a glob of black paint and just threw it on them. So I can see a hologram of their body, and then I see where the black splotches are. So I can see if it's spread like if it's breast cancer, if it's spread to the liver or the bone or whatever. And sometimes throughout the years, I've seen it before it shows up on the PET scans. And
Wow.
my client will say, well, no, I had a PET scan and it didn't show up. And then they'll email me a few months later and say, well, actually, you were right. So, yeah, it's interesting. Also, there's always an emotional component in place before any kind of medical condition arises. So we work on that as well.
What does that look like?
It can be something that happened when we were little. Somebody called us a bad name, let's say, for example, and it hurt our feelings. And we look at that as adults and we think, well, that's no big deal. But it was a big deal to your 3-year-old little self when it happened. Or it can be something really dramatic. My favorite dramatic story is I was working with a client on the Isle of Guernsey, which is one of the northern
Where's
British Isles.
Oh.
And let me back up a minute. The body and the spirit have separate energies. So the body has its energy that runs it, and then the spirit's the main power source for the body. That's the everlasting part. It's enclosed in what I call the energy field membrane, which is like a really thin, stretchy saran wrap bag, if you can imagine. So when there's a tear or a hole in that membrane, the person's leaking power. And that
Ooh.
hole is caused by an energy block, a la Eastern medicine, acupressure, acupuncture, clear the block, get the chi to move, that whole concept. And that energy block is caused by an emotional event. So I'll see a tear or hole and I'll go into that tear or hole and I'll be given a year if it's in this lifetime. So let's say 1997. And I'll say, where were you? What were you doing? How old were you? What do you remember? And they get it pretty much instantly. And they'll say, oh, my parents got divorced, or oh, we moved and I went to a new school, or whatever. My grandpa died. If it's a past life thing that's causing the energy blocks, then that gets really fun because I'll get where it was, when it was, a little bit about what went on, and then we'll correlate that with their current life.
Ooh, I love that.
And we oftentimes, I would say a good percentage of the time, can get information like a person's name and where they lived and things like that that can be validated and corroborated with historic documentation online. And I
That's
just had one the
cool.
other day. May I share it with you?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'm talking to this guy. He lives in Corona, California, not too far from you,
Oh my gosh, how
in the
funny.
LA area,
Yeah.
on the way out to heading out to Palm Springs. And we got that he had a past life. He was a sailor on a ship. There was an explosion on the ship, and he was killed, and the ship was in San Diego Harbor. But it
Wow.
wasn't like a bomb explosion. It was like some kind of malfunction, something, while it was in the harbor. So he was very determined to figure out when it happened, what the scoop was. We even got a name. We got what his name was as the sailor.
Oh my gosh, I have
So
chills. Ooh.
Jed, yeah. So Jed, he goes to the San Diego library and he's in the vault looking at microfiche. And he's going, going, going. And he said the ship looked maybe World War I era. It was old. It wasn't like a World War II Navy ship. And he kept looking, 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 explosion, explosion, San Diego Harbor. And he found one. It was the USS Bennington in 1905. And he found his name in the manifest
Oh my
of the
God.
sailors that died. And the explosion was caused by a boiler
Wow.
that exploded, and the ship sunk. And then they took that name and they renamed like an aircraft carrier or something for World War II. But he was able
Wow.
to corroborate all that information that we got from exploring his past life. And he was afraid of explosions. He said as a little boy, he kept having all these dreams of an explosion, even to the point where one day he said he was about 6 or 7, and they lived in an old house in Corona, and his mom was taking a shower, and the bathroom door was closed, and all this steam was coming out from underneath the door. And he was so bothered by it that
Oh.
he went and he hid in her bed and pulled the covers over his head
Oh,
till
sweet
she came
boy.
out. And so he's thinking, "What
Wow.
the heck? What's this coming from?" So I was able to access that past life, and we got and the other thing we got was that the sailor was young, and, he found out that the sailor not only, I think, was 18, but had only been in the Navy for 10 days.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
So that's the kind of information we can get from past lives, which is so much fun.
I love that.
Yeah, really fun.
Because I've had a past life regression and I've had some other people bring up past lives, but I've never been able to pinpoint it into history or into anything.
I don't do regressions, I do what I call past life scans.
Okay.
So the person's not
Under.
remembering stuff.
Yeah.
It's like I'm walking into a movie. And
How
I'm a
fun.
businesswoman, cut to the chase. What do you wanna know? Right?
Yes.
So we get where it was, when it was, what your name is, what was happening, how does it relate with what you're doing now?
Yeah.
And because we'll always carry a semblance of a script through multiple lifetimes, and we're looking at that script through different perspectives, different time, different place, different gender, different variables, different set of circumstances, same basic script. So we're looking at it from a different perspective, and that expands our spirit each time we incarnate.
Have you done your past life?
I have. We did it on the show,
Oh
actually.
my gosh, that's so
It
cool.
was Oh, I think it was released in the fall. I don't remember the number. Just, but it was with a guy named Simon Bound. So any of your listeners that wants to find it, just go to Ask Julie Ryan and put in Simon and it'll come up. The episode will come up. And I had never been regressed. So I thought, well, it'd be fun to do it,
Yeah.
and record it. And we did. And I wanted to know where this healing interest comes from for me. And what we learned was from a planet far, far away, 500 billion light years away. And it wasn't a planet, actually, it was a star. And all this energy was being infused into my body. It was like fireworks. There were circles going around me and laser beams. And I mean, it was wild. And I remember it was interesting. I'd love to hear your take when you were regressed, because I was totally coherent. I knew what was going on, but it was like I was watching a movie and getting all these divine downloads of information. And so it was wild. What came up on yours?
It definitely feels like you're making it up. I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
okay, then I was a fairy,
Oh, yeah.
a witch, this other dude. I
Where were
was
you a fairy?
where?
Yeah.
I don't know. It was like foresty.
Because I saw fairies in Ireland last fall for the first
Oh,
time when I was
no
over there.
way.
It was so cool.
What does it look like?
They look like Tinkerbell to me. I was in some woods in Ireland, of course,
Yes.
of
Yes.
course.
Absolutely.
And so it was early in the morning, nobody else was out. And I said, "Okay, you guys, I know you're here. Come out and say hello." And they did, and they came out from both sides of the woods. I was standing on this road, and they circled me, And then there were more that came out from the ground, and they had leprechauns with them too.
Oh
And
my
they
gosh.
started dancing around me in a circle, like Ring Around the Rosie kind of a
Oh,
circle.
yeah.
And so I had a conversation with them, and they were darling. They were so sweet. And I said, "Thanks for coming out." And they said, "Well, we knew you could see us." I said, "You're right. I
Oh my
can." And then they
gosh.
had a few other things that they said that were really sweet. So then I get back to Birmingham, Alabama, where I live, and I like to walk in the botanical gardens here. They're beautiful. So I thought, I wonder if they have fairies here. So, Jen, I was in the woods, I'm by myself on this path, and I said, "Hey, if you guys are here, come out and say hi." And they did. And they had the wings and everything, but their outfits were different. They looked like they had a silver sparkly majorette outfit on, like the University of Alabama would wear, their
Yes.
twirlerettes. And I thought, "Oh, that's interesting." I didn't see any leprechauns, but it was just the fairies.
Oh my
And then I had
gosh.
a woman on the show named Tanis Hellawell, who is a woman who's very versed in elementals. I guess that's what they call fairies.
Oh.
And we had this amazing discussion about elementals and mermaids and dragons and just like that. It was really
Which
fun.
kind of reminds me of like light language. Like there's like fairy light language or dragon light language. Do you know anything about that?
I don't. That's above my pay grade.
I don't think so. I bet
Yeah.
I bet it's one of if you want it. I don't know if you want
I
to do
just
it,
talk to them in
but
English.
yeah, exactly.
I don't need any light languages. They just communicate with me in English. And oftentimes I'll have a client and they'll either have a loved one with them on the call or on the Zoom, or they'll want me to scan them or talk to a loved one's spirit in heaven. And they'll say, "But they don't speak English." And I said, "It doesn't matter. It
Oh
comes in
yeah.
English for me because it's
Yeah.
all code. It's all
Right.
numerals that are translated into a language that we understand."
Yeah. You mentioned where you got your medical intuitive energy things from a star. Can we talk about the aliens for a little bit?
Sure. Yeah.
They are making a comeback or they're hanging out here.
They're in
They've
the
been here.
zeitgeist. Yeah.
Do you what are you gathering from them coming? Like what do you think they're here to help us with?
I think they've
Oh.
been here all along.
Yes. Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that we're just starting to pay attention to what's going on. I had a woman on the show recently, I believe her last name's Farrell, Mary Farrell, and she worked with the Apollo astronaut Edgar Mitchell, Dr. Edgar Mitchell, who was a serious scientist, like MIT, PhD, I don't even know,
All the
astrophysics or
letters. Yeah.
something. Yeah, lots of alphabet soup at the
Mhm.
end of his name, lots of letters. And they began, a research project. He founded IONS, the near-death studies group, of which I've spoken. I've been a speaker for them, and not that I've been through one, but I, can explain what's going on to those who have. And so anyways, Mary has interviewed 3,500 plus families who have either the parents and the children or the children have been taken up to spacecraft from
Wow.
all over the world, Jen.
Yeah.
And these are like 3 and 4-year-olds that can't read yet. And they have all these commonalities. And it's fascinating what they come up with.
Does their body get taken up or their, like, soul body? Do you know?
Both
Okay.
depends on what's going on.
Yeah.
Because some of them come back and they have, like, puncture marks or scratches or things like that while they're asleep. I mean, nothing's happening to them while they're asleep, and they describe the craft, and let's say you'll have a 4-year-old in Ireland will describe the same thing as a 6-year-old in Uganda and a 6-year-old in Lima, Peru, and a 3-year-old in Chicago. Well, there's no way that they would have all of those things that would be in common that they would describe. So, I've had Philip Kinsella on as well, who's a researcher he calls himself a ufologist. I said, "Well, that's a new vocabulary word for me. I never heard of it."
I
Have you
know.
heard that term?
No, I have not.
Somebody that studies UFOs. And
Ufologist.
he's a Brit, and he talks about that there have been spacecraft that have landed in the UK, and there's all kinds of information that, of course, is classified like it is here. So, I think they're all benevolent. I think they're all pure love. I think some of them, there's a really good chance that they're way more advanced than we are. I had a guy named Tom, the late Tom Palladino, on this show, and we talked a little bit about it. And he said that those spacecraft use plasma energy, whereas we're using a Newtonian, a gravitational energy. And that's why when the fighter pilots see those craft and they disappear in a second, or they go like vertical and they disappear in a second or something that our technology can't catch up to, he said they're using a totally different energy field to travel.
Yeah. Which is interesting because I'm wondering what's gonna happen with AI and us, because it feels like it could be that I don't know if we're, like, gonna implant that into our bodies or what's gonna happen, but I feel like the aliens have, like, a different like, energetically, they are like, they have so much more than us, or they have, like, access to it different or different type of energy.
I think that we have a lot of the same powers, if you will, for lack of a better word, and yet we just don't know how to use it. So I talk telepathically to people all day, every day. Can turn it on and off in a nanosecond, can do non-local reality. I scan people when they're in surgery all the time, and I'm texting with their loved ones in the waiting room saying, "Okay, they're doing this, and there's 2 doctors working on them, and all their deceased loved ones' spirits are in the room in the operating suite," and I describe what they look like, and their guardian angels over the head of anesthesia, and the surgeon doctors, advisors are over their head, the spirit ones. And then, I can non-local reality is called remote viewing. It's how I do all that medical stuff when I'm looking inside somebody's body. I can go frontwards and backwards with remote viewing. It's just a matter of learning how to do it,
Cool.
and it's
That's so
super
cool.
easy.
Yeah.
All the spy agencies use remote viewing, all the intelligence agencies around the world, the CIA, the FBI, all the military intelligence in every country is using the remote viewing and telepathic stuff and have been for years. And I believe also that a lot of our technology companies and others are using telepathic stuff to not only do industrial espionage, but also to develop new devices and things along those lines.
Yeah.
Google and Apple and all those
Yes.
companies have departments of people doing this woo-woo stuff.
That's wild.
Oh,
That
yeah,
is so
absolutely.
crazy, but I
Yeah,
believe it. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, can we switch to the topic of angels?
Sure.
Um, how would you describe an angel versus a spirit guide, past loved one? How are they kind of categorized?
Well, they're all spirits, as are we with a human body. We're all a fractal of the divine. And so we're all one, but we're fractals of the same one, if you will. Like, you probably have heard we're a drop of water in the ocean. So all of us are the ocean, and we're a drop of water in the ocean. Same concept. So angels are spirits, and they look like we picture angels in the Western world. I mentioned I'm a
Do they
Catholic
really?
girl.
Yeah.
Angels look to me like the statues and the paintings and the depictions of angels. And spirit guides are, it's been my experience that spirit guides are entities that have lived human lives at some point, and they advise us. And when most of us, if not all of us, it's been my experience, Jen, we'll have a minimum of 7 spirit guides around us all the time, and they kind of follow us around in a horseshoe. So I picture them when I'm driving my car. They're in the back seat with me. They're in the car with me. And then if you want to communicate with them, you just think of it and then they're online, and you can communicate. But when I see them, they look like versions of Father Time. Think of Dumbledore in the Harry Potter movies or
Yeah.
Gandalf in the Lord of the Rings movies, old man, white beard, white long hair, white gown. And then when we talk to them individually, then they morph into looking like how they looked in the lifetime that most pertains to
That
whatever they're
person.
advising on. So I had one not too long ago. I was working with a client and they were in the financial services industry. And I forget the name of the spirit guide. Let's say Marvin. So Marvin looked like Dumbledore. And then once we started talking to Marvin, he morphed into looking like the banker in Monopoly. you know, or
Yes.
I'll see,
You can't
I'll see
pass go.
somebody looks like a model in 1940s Paris or something, or I'll see somebody walking down Fifth Avenue and they're in a Chanel suit with
Oh
whatever.
gosh.
It's
Yeah.
just a riot. It's so much fun. So those are spirit guides, and we don't have the same spirit guides necessarily through all phases of our lifetime. Different ones will come in at different times. My main spirit guide is a dead pope named
Ooh.
Clement the Sixth, and he came in 10 or a little over 10 years ago. And I was with my mentor, Susan, and she was doing a healing on me. And this dead pope shows up dead. He's got his pope hat on and his shepherd's rod, the whole 9 yards. And Susan could see him too. And I said, "So, hi, who are you?" And he said, "I'm Clement." And I could tell he was a pope. I mean, I'm a
Yeah.
Catholic girl. And I said, "Well, I never heard of a Pope Clement." And he said, "Well, I was number 6." And he was laughing. I said, "Great. How may I help you?" Kind of like, "Why are you here?" And he said, "You're supposed to teach the world what happens when somebody dies." And I said, "I'm not doing that. I'm a businesswoman. People will think I'm nuts." And he said, "No, you know what happens, and people are so afraid of it. And there's nothing to be afraid of. And so everything you've done's trained you for this. You just need to get on with it." And I'm like, "Yeah, thanks, but no thanks. Have a nice day. See you. Bye." So I go to my car to leave, Jen, and I look up just for kicks on my phone, Pope Clement the Sixth. Turns out this guy was in office during the Black Plague when 2/3 of Europe died, and he's best known for his prayers for the dying and his prayers for the dead. And I
Oh
thought,
my
"Okay, Ryan,
God.
you can't make that up."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So he's the one that's prodded me to do all of this stuff when I say, "I can't do that. How am I gonna do it?" He's like, "Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
just do it."
yeah.
I don't even argue with him anymore because he's always
Mhm.
right. I don't know what I was thinking. You know, I'm arguing with this dead pope, duh. He
Yeah.
has access to all information,
Oh my
all that's
gosh.
happened, all that's gonna happen, like,
Right.
all information, and here I am arguing with him
Yeah.
why I can't do something, so I
So,
gave it up.
do you help so if somebody comes to you with cancer, but it's terminal,
Yeah.
do you help them with what happens after they die? Do you become like this death doula at that point? Or does that like how do you teach people what's gonna happen to them?
Great question. It's always our spirit's choice when we go, where we go, how we go, who's with us or not when we go. And so everything can be healed in the body. The body is programmed to heal. This whole autoimmune thing that the
Yeah.
medical community talks about just means they don't know.
I love that. Because it is. What I mean, I went to the doctor 2 years ago for something in my gut, and they're like, "We don't know what this is." I said, "Okay, I gotta do my energy work." That's what led me into it. Yeah.
Well, we don't expect them to know everything, but when they say, "Oh, your body's attacking itself," that is total nonsense. The body is never going to attack itself. The body is programmed to heal, period. End of story. So when I get clients say, "Well, I have all these autoimmune diseases," I go, "Yeah, just forget that. Your body has the capacity to heal." So that's number one. Number two, when somebody's dying, their spirit exits their body through the top of the head, and it looks like a cartoon caption bubble, like a speech bubble. And then their deceased loved ones' spirits come in. The maternal spirit closest to the dying person is the spirit that shows up first and brings in the other angels and the spirits and all of that, which surprised me. I thought it would be the person's guardian angel who's there, who, by the way, stays with us throughout all of our lifetimes. Our
Oh,
guardian
that's
angel
cool.
does. But it's the mother spirit, it's that maternal spirit. So, let's hope your babies are very old when they're dying and you're in heaven. You're going to be the one that's going to come in and run
Oh
the
my
show.
gosh, it makes me cry.
I know. And
So
another
beautiful.
important point, and I've seen this thousands and thousands of times. Another important point is when a child is adopted, it's the adopted mother, it's the mother that raises them that runs the show. The birth mother spirit is there, but it's the adopted mother. Her spirit runs the show. If she's still alive, the birth mother or the adopted mother, it doesn't matter. Then it's the next maternal female, maybe the maternal grandmother. If she's still alive, it's going to be her mother. Great grandma's still alive, it's going to be great grandma's mother, always on the maternal side, which I thought
Mm.
was really interesting.
Yeah, what if you didn't have a good relationship with your mom?
Well,
Doesn't
all
matter when
spirits
you
are
die,
pure
right?
love.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that snarky personality stays with the body when somebody dies. It's like a role they're playing in a movie. So all spirits are pure love. This whole thing about evil spirits is total nonsense. All spirits are pure love. It's how somebody's interpreting something that's scaring them based on their own frequency at that moment. So that happens. And then other loved ones are there and they're surrounded by angels, and there's a configuration that happens. The circle that's anchored by the parents' spirits starts to open, and then angels fill out the circle. It starts to open up in a horseshoe and then eventually a straight line. That's like the line of demarcation between the spirit world and our human world. And so it's really fascinating to see. The first time I saw this was with my own mother when she was dying in
Wow.
2002. And I was like, "Okay,
Is that when
what's
you're like,
happening next?"
okay, Clementine? No, Clement? What's his name? Clement?
Clement hadn't showed up yet. He didn't show up till about 3 years later,
Oh,
or maybe even
wow.
longer than that, because 'cause I'd
Okay.
seen it several other times.
That's why
And
he was like,
he's like, you need to teach the world because everybody's afraid." My parish priest from the pulpit one time just said, "People are so afraid to die because they don't know if they're gonna fly or they're gonna fry."
Ah,
I said, "I'm gonna
oh my
steal that
gosh.
line."
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So,
then when you go, do you kind of recount your life? And then, I mean, time's probably obviously way different up there, but then you're like, then I'm going to go back in. I'm going to
yeah,
reincarnate.
yeah, pretty much. Time doesn't exist in the spirit world. Time's a human creation. So linear time as we know it was created by humans. So it's irrelevant any place other than Earth.
So is it possible that I could have a past life in the 80s, but I was born in 84?
Absolutely, it's possible that you can be living multiple lifetimes concurrently,
Oh, well,
and that makes my head wanna
yeah.
explode.
Let me go in the highest one.
Yeah,
Let's
so
merge
I
those.
think I feel like Scooby-Doo. I go, "What? Huh?
Yeah.
What?" And and so where I go with that is I don't understand it, but I will when I get back to heaven, and so I just stay with, is it feasible? Yeah, it's feasible. Do I understand it? No, but I know I will eventually.
Yeah. And I think another good question that helps me sometimes is like, is this helpful information for me? Like, does this make me feel better, like more wrapped in love, more like hopeful, or does this like spiral me down and I'm like frozen in fear? Like, and I think that's always a good radar for me. Like, if I get a little too far in the weeds, I'm like, oh, this is not no longer helpful for me.
Well, all fear, there's 2 kinds of fear. There's rational fear, something's gonna harm you or kill you, so change the conditions. Get out of the road before the truck runs you over,
Right.
in other words.
Helpful fear.
Or 99.999% of thoughts that feel badly are based in irrational fear. So here's how you tell. You just ask yourself, is this going to kill me in the next 2 minutes?
Oh, that's good.
If we live multiple lifetimes concurrently and it feels really bad, is that going to kill me in the next 2 minutes? No. So it keeps us out of fight or flight, and it keeps our brain working clearly. And so we can say, no, but is it feasible? Yeah, I guess everything is. And I'll find out when
Right.
I get back to heaven. So it keeps you out of being afraid and then keeps your vibration level high so you can get communication from spirit. Because we're all getting led all day long. You have a thought come into your head and you think, I can't do that because of this. Well, spirit doesn't care whether you do it or not. They're just sending you guidance. They think it's fun to watch to see what you create or what you don't create because there's no right or wrong in the spirit world.
Yeah.
It's
That's
just an
happened.
experience.
That's what I've noticed in this last week. That's happened for me for other people. Look, I'll have a thought about them.
Yeah.
Either ask them how they're doing or something. And so now and they know it. I'm just like, hey, I got this, but I don't know what you want to do with it, Or like, how are you feeling? I was thinking
Yeah.
about you.
Well,
Just
you're being led to call them or to contact them.
yeah.
Yeah. We
Which
get
I
that.
think is
Everybody's
beautiful.
experienced that.
Yeah.
You get a call or an email or a text, and you'll say, "Oh, I was just thinking of you this morning, and here you are."
Yes.
Do 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 do. Or
Yes.
what a coincidence! No coincidence there. It's telepathic communication, and we all do it. Little children are very, very good at it until their parents and grandparents and other adults say, "Oh, honey, that's just your imagination. That's not really true." And so I have a series of 4 children's books that are picture books that I've written because throughout the years, I have so many moms and grandmothers who have said to me, "Can you help me explain to little Johnny how he knows his great grandfather who's been dead for 40 years? And he knows his name and his birth date and where he lived. And then he says they played trains together. And great grandpa had a bunch of train sets. I mean, there's no way this 3-year-old would know that." And then I get a lot of, "Can you explain how my grandchild or daughter who's 4 knows all this information about a past life, and we've been able to validate it with historic documentation online. This kid can't read yet."
Oh my
And then
gosh.
my other favorite is, how do we explain to our 5-year-old that grandma's in heaven now? And he's saying, when they're at the funeral home for visitation, he's saying, "No, she's not. She's asleep in that box up there in the front of the room." How do you explain that? So it works really well. A lot of beautiful images and illustrations of angels, and
Yeah.
they're called the Angel Messages series, and it's all for children.
Well, we have a lot of moms that listen to the show, so I'll link that
Yeah.
in the
Do you
show
wanna
notes.
see? I didn't pull them out, but let me show you one of them. The illustrations, I just had a client yesterday tell me that her son, who's 4, loves these because they love all the
Oh,
pictures in them.
that's
And my
beautiful.
illustrator is Irish. See, the angel is
Oh,
giving him a
yeah.
message on every page, and she was a fashion designer before
I
she,
love it.
became an illustrator. So this is angel messages for dogs.
Oh,
Dogs,
that's
cats,
so sweet.
angel messages for kids, and then angel messages for truth.
Oh, so good. I'm okay. I gotta get those, so thank you.
You bet.
Julie, can you tell people where to find you and how they can work with you? This has been so fun, and I just love being around you. I wish I can come to your house right now. Is that weird?
Come on. Come on, next time I'm in
I'm coming.
LA, we'll get together.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, I told
Seriously.
you my son lives here.
Yeah.
So, first of all, anybody that wants a copy of Angelic Attendants, What Really Happens as We Transition from This Life into the Next, just go to julieryangift.com or my regular website, askjulieryan.com. You can get it there. You'll see on the homepage, get a free copy. And so we'll send you a free digital and audiobook version. And this is what I was talking about, how we're surrounded by angels and the spirits of deceased loved ones and pets. And so we have illustrations in there of what the 12 phases of transition look like. and the scientific data that corroborates that, because the university-based research shows that 90% of people at the end of their lives see the spirits of deceased loved ones and pets, either
Wow.
in visions or dreams. So grandma is not hallucinating. It's not because of the morphine. They're actually seeing spirits.
Yeah. How
So that's
beautiful.
important. So askjulieryan.com, Ask Julie Ryan on all the socials, Ask Julie Ryan on YouTube, podcast. You can get it anywhere podcasts are downloadable, and we do all the
All the
episodes are
things.
on YouTube, and we have 5 language channels on YouTube. So we've got English, Spanish, German, Portuguese, and French.
Wow.
Yeah.
International, baby.
Yeah. So it's a lot of fun.
Aw. Thank you again, Julie. I'm so excited. This is our first initial meeting together and many more to come.
Oh,
Thank
my
you.
honor. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Thank you so much for listening to our show. If you are loving what you're hearing, please give us a review up on Apple Podcasts as it helps our show grow. Thank you. We'll see you next time.